Welcome back to the Jungle Fever podcast. I'm Ethan Sergeant. Aiden Crowley is alongside me, and it is once again not quite Victory Monday. It's Loss Monday. The Bengals fall to 3-8, 26-20 yesterday. The defeat to the 9-2, very impressively, New England Patriots. Plenty to discuss about this game. But we said this last week. I just kind of felt apathetic this whole game. I didn't really have even when they went up early in this one, I didn't really feel like I had a feeling they were still going to lose. And lo and behold, I was right. But even if they had hung around to win that game, I'm not sure how much it really would have, again, changed how I feel about this iteration of the Bengals. It's just not, you don't have that same energy that even like last year, there was a little bit of this where, they were bad and then, they started turning it around and you had towards the end of the year, they had a chance to make the playoffs and you had a little bit of buy-in, but I just don't have that this year at all. And it really, I don't even think has to do with the fact that, yeah, we know at this point they're not making the postseason. And we know that they're not, going to succeed on a lot of the goals that they set in the preseason. But, just even on a day where the defensive effort was much better, it still just kind of feels, I don't know, like for naught, maybe. Just, you know, don't really have that same feeling.
Yeah.
I
If
mean,
nothing else,
sound, excuse me.
if nothing else, this Bengals team's entertaining. It seems like they always want to play a game that, is somewhat enjoyable to watch for the most part, but I tend to agree with you. I think Paul Danners and Jay Morrison gave a good summation of that feeling. They obviously beat writers for the Bengals. They feel like they have so many storylines they want to take with this team, but they can't because of what the record shows. I mean, the story of Mitch Tinsley yesterday was incredible. Jamar is suspended. T goes down with that concussion. Andre Yoshivas obviously misses time for a short period in that game. And Mitch Tinsley's vaulted into wide receiver one. And what does he do? He burns one of the best corners in the league for a back shoulder, beautiful ball from Joe Flacco for that touchdown, and it's just kind of meh because they lose. Joe Flacco, I think, sounded like a guy who knew that this was his last start with the Bengals at the podium. He was extremely reflective. He talked a lot about how much fun and how appreciative he was of the Bengals. And that whole Joe Flacco story, unfortunately, is just thrown away. He gave you what you wanted from him. He gave you exactly what
Absolutely.
you needed, which was just
Absolutely.
a life preserver, something to tread water. And that's exactly what he provided for you. But unfortunately, that gets thrown away too because of the results. And so there's just so many cool things, I think, with this team that's just getting overshadowed. Once again, DJ Turner, incredible yesterday.
He should be a Pro Bowler.
It
He
doesn't
won't be,
matter.
but he should be.
But so it's a little frustrating. And then at this point in the season, like you said, I mean, you're 3-8, you're not going anywhere. If there was a 0.1% chance to make the playoffs last going into this game, it's now zero. So at this point, you're playing to see what Burrow said last year. Who still wants to be here next year? That's kind of what it feels like the guys are playing for at this point, coaches included. So we'll see how the season kind of progresses. But it sounds like Burrow will be back for Thursday, which I guess, again, if nothing else, will be entertaining, right? These Cincinnati Bengals, they're entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit it there again. Just, the entertainment factor. I mean, last year they lost so many of those close, entertaining games, right? If they had just won one of those games, I think like to the Chargers game, the either Ravens game from last year, for examples, they were in the postseason. So, um, you can only do what you can. Looking back towards yesterday, some good and some bad. We'll start out with the good. Um, I thought we'll start on special teams because Evan McPherson, I think he's earned the nickname back. I think he's
Yeah,
earned shooter back.
bring it
How
back.
about a 63-yard field goal right at the end of the first half?
Franchise
Um,
record.
it is a franchise record. He hit another field goal as well, as long as two extra points. It's a huge
Set a
bounce
great
back season for him. Massive bounce back. Bengals paid him a lot of money in last offseason. Obviously, last year clearly was an outlier with the injury. And then I think the mental on side of that injury. So much of what goes into kicking is mental. And I think he struggled with that a little bit, but again, he refocused. He got back in the lab, and he's been great this year. So all credit to Shooter. I will affectionately call him that once again because I think he's earned that back. You want to hear an interesting stat? Since week 6, well, actually, no, you could actually zoom out to the whole season here. The Bengals are third in the NFL the whole season in rushing efficiency per play, which the two teams that are above them are the Rams, who are one of the best teams in football, and the Colts, who have maybe the best running back in football, Jonathan Taylor. So you have the way that this run game, and you think back to the first couple of years or the weeks of the season where they
Yeah.
could not run the ball at all. The development in that side of the game has been really, really impressive. So I'm excited to see that development. Chase Brown had 107 yards on the ground on 19 carries yesterday. A little bit over five a pop. That's a good clip. You will take that every time. Um, Obviously, the defense did play a little bit better yesterday against an offense that had been rolling. They still had their moments, but you have to take your hat off for both of the goal line stands. The one in the third quarter was unbelievable. 8 plays.
Yeah, it was 8 or 9
Um,
plays, which just
it,
doesn't happen.
it
If
was a
you give an NFL,
wacky.
yeah,
I understood the call on Dax Hill. You have to call it, but
I mean that's
again, to stand up when you have again you had already done so much hard work, and then so many times after a penalty like that, you see a team just plunge it in right away on first and goal. To hold them once, then get the holding call and be able to hold them again was really impressive. And then even there at the end of the fourth quarter, it gave the offense a chance by forcing Vrabel to kick the field goal. Kind of the opposite situation to what transpired in Detroit between the Giants and the Lions. The Giants ended up going for it on the fourth down instead of kicking the field goal, which would have put them up 6 and forced Detroit to go all the way down the field. Instead, they go for it on fourth goal, didn't get it. Detroit kicked the field goal, end up winning the game in overtime. Patriots end up kicking the field goal, and while the Bengals did move the ball pretty well on that final drive, they weren't able to get it in the end zone. So came up just short. Kind of the theme of the day. Some other standout performers. I will say, I think again, it's two in a row now for Miles Murphy. It's two good games in a row. And Ayden kind of mentioned this a second ago, that aspect of who wants to be here next year. For a guy who's about to probably have his fifth-year option declined, he's showing some flashes, which is something, right? You haven't gotten anything out of him. To be able to
one
see
with you.
that in terms of development is really good. So shout out to Miles Murphy. Ayden mentioned Turner, so I won't go super in on him, but he again, I mean, just you give him any
He gave up
assignment
one
right now.
catch. It came
Yep.
the one catch he gave up came out at such an
It
unfortunate
was a
time.
bad time. Yeah.
And that was kind of the case with the team. I thought the defense was great on first and second down. They got the Patriots in uncomfortable situations consistently in that game. It felt like they were in third and 12, third and 13 all afternoon. But guess what? They converted those a little too often. But yeah, the one time DJ Turner gets beat was on that like third and 18 to Diggs, and that stinks. That's part of being corner in the NFL, right? You're gonna lose every so often. It just unfortunate that it came there. But
It's
other
the
than that,
least it's the least forgiving position in football, in my
yeah.
opinion.
I mean, Diggs on the day, 2 catches for 20 yards, and 14 of it came on one catch. So again, clamps. Somebody you didn't mention. I thought Barrett Carter played his best game as a Bengal.
Yep.
16 tackles. I mean,
I thought both rookie linebackers were much improved. I thought Knight was
yep.
better too.
Took a step. This definitely was a step, which I know is probably not saying a whole lot given where they were.
It's again to
Um,
not look like a bunch of 6-year-olds out there is a step.
yeah, yeah,
So
and so, but the issue with the defense still was sure the Patriots weren't ending up in the end zone, but there were these long, sustained drives that just went down the field, ate up clock, limited possessions, and that's was kind of a recipe for the Patriots' success today was limit the Bengals offensively through the amount of possessions that they have because they were converting those third and 13s. And it's why I was a little puzzled when Zach Taylor decided not to go for it in two different situations. I think that
yeah,
one of the more damning ones was that 4th and 1 kind of earlier on where they're on their own 40 and uh, you're 2 and 8 or you're excuse me you're 3 and 7 and you have your backup quarterback in. You don't have Jamar Chase. You don't have Trey Hendrickson. Like, what do you have to lose at that point? That's kind of my question. And Zach said post game that he trusted his defense, which again they were playing better, but New England goes down, sustains this long drive, kicks a field goal. You know what I mean? It's just stuff like that. Again, the kind of game management stuff with Taylor, I still have issues with, but that's nitpicking on a season where you're 3-8. So I don't know how
Is
much I
is he
can really.
even does he have 5 games left here as a head coach, right? That's kind of
Yes,
the
he
argument at this
does.
point. By the way, while we got this started, Zach Taylor was on the podium and he did confirm that Joe Burrow is going to start on Thursday night. So, there you go. There you have
Yeah, he
it.
said
And
I anticipate him playing, but we'll
I
see.
think the most frustrating thing about this whole scenario is if the Bengals had just found a way to win a couple, like the Bengals went 1-8 without Joe Burrow, right? If you want to even argue the Jacksonville game, still 2-8, right? If they could have found a way to win 4 of those games, let's give them the Bears game and the Jets game because they really should have won both of those games. And then I don't even know. Maybe they find a way to win one of those other games, right? Maybe they
This
do.
still is our game.
Sure, give it that 4, right? So now instead of being 3-8, they will they will have won. I mean, what would they be?
They'd be 5-5, right?
Five and
Or five,
five.
5-6.
But when you look at where the division's at right now, new the Ravens were able to scrape by the Jets last week. The Steelers yesterday lose on the road, down their quarterback. Um, and the Browns are with us in the basement here. So, you would have had a shot, right? If Burrow comes back and you've still got both Ravens games on the schedule, and then you've got a pretty easy end of the regular season with 3 teams in Arizona, Miami, and Cleveland that are all pretty much on the beach already.
Yeah,
You might have
but they
had
didn't.
something, but
But
they
they
didn't.
didn't.
And you can't. You can point my thing is you can only point so many fingers, right? You can say, oh, well, we did this all last season, right? Where it was, oh, well, what if they had got the stop against Baltimore? What if they got the 2-point conversion on the road in Baltimore? What if McPherson doesn't miss 8,000 kicks, right? Like it's
They
just
didn't.
it happened. It's in the past, and now you're fighting for draft position, pretty much. The thing is, the way that the bottom of the league this year is bad. And
I
I
was gonna
think
say they're what, eighth right now picking
Bengals
compared
are
to.
eighth right now in draft position.
Here's a question for you.
Being
Do you
eight.
think they end the season with a top 10 pick?
No,
I agree.
they'll win 2 out of the 3 of that Miami, Arizona, Cleveland stretch, I think, and that'll
I
probably
tend to agree.
in the
Um,
10 to 15 range would be my
yep,
guess,
where they are
something
all the
like
time, right?
that. Um, Yeah, just the perfect position to take Keldrick Falk out of Auburn, who
That's what
has
his name
two
is,
and a half
Keldrick
sacks on the
Bolt.
season. So,
Yep, yep. The
um,
SEC profile, the traits guy.
yeah,
So,
uh-huh.
okay, I want to kind of go back to this, the Burrow news, right? Because it
Sure.
pretty much is confirmed that he's playing, it
Hmm.
seems like. I guess just to start, I'm curious kind of what your take on that is as you
Sorry,
take a bite.
I'm still eating my salad.
I can give you my take if you want while
Go
you.
ahead. If you go first,
So,
I'm gonna kill this.
I just think it's too late. Listen, if you're gonna bring him back, I thought Sunday made sense because again, there was a 0.01% chance you win out and all of a sudden you're in a play. You know what I mean? Like there was still hope. As small as it was going against New England, there's still hope. And so you roll them out there at this point in the season with that loss. What are you playing for? You're playing for Zach
Nothing.
Taylor's job. You're playing for draft position, essentially is what you're playing for. But so from like a big picture, like zooming out lens, I don't understand putting him back out there. Now, I get it. Joe is a competitor. He's a guy who wants to be out there, and if he's feels comfortable doing it and doctors clear him, he's going to be out there. So I get that side of it, and I never want to take that competitive spirit away from him because I think it's one of the things that makes him so great. However, on the off chance he rolls out there and re-aggravates it or does something worse, you're gonna look real stupid. If you're Zach Taylor
Mm,
and if you're this front office, because again, you invested how much money into this guy? He is your future. And you
a
think
lot.
about again, we saw it in this game. How top heavy is this Bengals roster between Jamar, T, Burrow, and Hendrickson? You didn't have all four at one point on Sunday, and you saw the product that you get on the field, right? And so, however you can protect the top end of your roster because you need them pretty bad, I would err on the side of caution. I understand that that's just not the case because
My thing
these are
with it
competitive.
is, like you said, like they could have. The only way Burrow wasn't playing if he's physically able is just that, is if he's physically unable, right? And
Mhm.
he's just such a competitor. And like, I think there may have been people in that building that made the same exact argument that you just made, and it would have been shot down by Joe himself or by the coach, right? By Zach Taylor, who would have said, well, we want to give our team the best shot to win. You can't tank. Like it's not a thing. Like you can't just say, "Oh, well, we're throwing in the towel." You can do that. But like again, with Burrow coming back and if he gets, which clearly he has gotten that clean sign off from the doctors and if he feels good enough to go, he's gonna go, right? And there's nothing you can do, right? I want to see Joe play well. I want to see him succeed, right? But you also bring up a great point about, potential re-injury. What if there's another issue? What if, a pocket breaks down again? I know the first time he gets sacked, there's going to be a lot of people holding their breath, right? Because that's just the thing with him now. It's, 3 out of 6 seasons in the NFL, he's had not exactly cut short this year, but major blip due to injury, right? So, you know, I'm excited to see him play. I always enjoy watching Joe play. I think he's one of the best in the league right now, and I think it's an opportunity for him to go out there and, play some things. I would like to see some of the concepts they used with Flacco be used with Burrow. I think that there was some stuff there that you got. Like there was some stuff that should absolutely be integrated into what Joe does offensively. So, especially the
Zach
play
Taylor
action
ran a
game.
first down under center play action. I thought I was watching a different team. I
Yeah.
was like, whoa. And guess what? It went for 12 yards. It worked. I was like,
So I mean,
holy.
again, I think like you just said, they should try integrating some of those concepts in. They should try, giving their, try some stuff. You have that kind of you have that freedom this year. Try some stuff. I did have a couple other points I wanted to make. Number one, cut Jermaine Burton. I'm done. I'm done. Jamar Chase was out this week. It was a prime opportunity for him to potentially get some tread, right? And look, he may well have another opportunity on Thursday, right? With T probably being out for a few weeks.
He is out. Yeah.
So he's inactive. I'm not blaming the team anymore. I'm past that because clearly at this point it is and our good mutual acquaintance Bryce Tinson has said this multiple times. If you or I had that God-given talent that Jermaine Burton has, like there's a guy if he could screw his head on straight, he could be a very good NFL receiver. And yet he just chooses to party, to drink, to gallivant is the word, right?
Nick Saban tried to
It
tell him on
serves
draft night.
it serves nobody good. That's what I don't understand. You're playing like if you play well in the NFL, you're rewarded with a big contract, right? Millions and millions of dollars are at stake here. And you can set yourself up for life. You can set your family up for life. And you're just chucking it away to, go to some parties in Atlanta on the bye week. Like, there's no, we tried, me and you both have said, we've tried to give him the excuses. We've tried to explain it away. And he's gonna leave the Bengals with like 2 catches to his name. And you spent a third round pick on him. That's inexcusable.
Yeah. I mean, you just lit a third round pick on fire, essentially, is what you did.
Uh-huh. And it's not the
And
first time they've done that, and it probably won't
yeah,
be the
yeah,
last.
it won't be the last. I can tell you that right now. Um, but Nick Saban tried to tell you on draft night, right? He kind of said it without saying it. When the pick happened, he was very cautious, and I think Nick was trying to be, the PR guy of like, oh, this is one of my guys. I coached him and everything,
Mhm.
but he's got some baggage. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. If he can't succeed in this culture, I think the Bengals do have a very good culture. I think that
I think it's Zach Taylor's biggest feather in the
yeah,
cap as a head coach.
yeah, I think you never hear about any BS in the locker room. You think about this receiving group and how tight they are with Jamar and T and Yoshi. Like, if you can't figure out with these guys, I don't know where you're going to be able to figure it out. I just
And
don't.
I would bet a good amount of money that if the Bengals do end up releasing him, he'll get picked up somewhere else. And what reason do you have to think that it'll be different in any other city? Like I don't see there being a change, right?
No.
And if there is, then maybe he just decides that he wants to get his head out of his butt. I don't know, right? I
I
think
think
you just
we're
have to end the experiment,
I think we're a
unfortunately.
year and a half still waiting on that. I don't know. If he hasn't
But
shown it yet,
he
like it's
bought a
just
cat and he's down in Atlanta partying, right? What can you
so
do?
it which is it's just frustrating. So and like you said, T out for this upcoming game against the Ravens. Taj Brooks also out against the Ravens, so even more of a workload for Chase Brown.
Joe
Um,
Burrow just posted this.
what's it say?
So it is
He's
the
back.
he's back picture with him in the LeBron jersey. So I
Yeah,
would take that as an inclination to think that he's playing on Thursday night.
I
And he
mean,
loves himself a game against Baltimore. So
Jamar might have 400 receptions on Thursday.
I would expect them to, and we could talk about this a little bit here. I would expect to Nate Wiggins to follow Jamar Chase around a lot, right? Baltimore's secondary is not particularly deep, right? Jair Alexander left the team, was traded and left the team. They don't have fantastic depth at really corner or safety, but Nate Wiggins is a fantastic football player. So I would imagine that he follows Jamar around for a lot of this game, and the Ravens, I'd imagine, would bracket Jamar a whole lot. They'll throw that safety over the top. They will give that extra assurance, and they will challenge the Bengals and Joe Burrow to beat them with guys that are not named Jamar Chase. So you're looking at Andre Yosevas. You're looking at Mike Gesicki, who I thought had a pretty solid game in his return. You're looking at maybe Mitchell Tinsley again, right? You're looking at those guys to get some more reps, some more opportunities. And, the Bengals, I believe they're either 30th or 31st in the league in wide receiver three usage, right? And it makes sense because they have such great talents at wide receiver one and wide receiver two. But the numbers obviously got to go up now with what you're seeing from this Bengals offense and really the injuries, right? With T Higgins being hurt, and with what's happened. Look, I know NBC executives are probably pretty happy that Joe Burrow's going to play. Thanksgiving night when you made the schedule back in May or whenever they put it out. If you're an NBC exec, you're thinking, well, this is a big game for the division. Both teams will probably be in the playoff hunt as well. And obviously, one team in Baltimore is still very much alive. I believe they're at a 6-6 now, 6-5, something like that. They've
The
won a
Ravens
bunch of
are
games
six
in
and
a
five.
row.
They've won five straight.
I mean, they haven't looked, in my opinion, particularly
The
impressive in
offense
any of
has
these games.
struggled mightily.
Yeah,
And there was a lot of questions, especially after this Jets game where it was a
they did not
dumpster
look good in
fire.
this game against a Jets
It's
defense that has not been particularly good.
Yeah. There were a lot of questions about Lamar's health, and Lamar quickly shot those down. He says he feels fine. They're just not executing. And it's interesting because you think about how dynamic this team has been over the past couple years, and you think back to week one. They put up 40 against the Bills. And obviously, the Bills defense has taken a step back this year and everything, but still, like, this is a dynamic group. And for them to, I mean, 23 against the Jets, 23 against the Browns, 27 against the Vikings, 28 against Miami. Like they're winning games, but they're
I
not
will
doing
say
a whole
that the
lot.
defense, ever since they've got some of these bodies back, we talked
Yeah.
about them early in the season when they were struggling mightily on defense. It was because, they lost Roquan Smith for, I think, 5 weeks. They lost Nnamdi Madubuike for the whole season, which they still feel that a little bit. But they're starting to get guys step up. Smith has been fantastic since he's come back. Kyle Hamilton is starting to turn it on. Nate Wiggins, like I mentioned earlier, is playing at a high level. They really what Baltimore needs is for one of these pass rushers that they have to step up. Obviously, they traded Odafe Owe during the trade deadline. You're looking at like David Ojabo, the former Michigan Wolverine, try and get him some more snaps. A couple of these other guys that they just kind of it seems like they've spent a ton of first and second round capital recently on those pass rushers, and they haven't really gotten amazing return on investment, like decent, I would say, but not like, they haven't gotten any Watts or Hendricksons or Garretts to just look around the rest of the division. So,
Mhm.
you know, I think that when you look at what they're trying to do, that they need to rush the passer a little bit better. I think that's kind of the last step this defense kind of needs to, and they still need another extra corner, I feel like, but you can't really do anything about that. They've kind of rotated a few young guys in there. So again, and we know how much Joe loves to attack this Ravens secondary, right? He will attack it. He will be aggressive. I would expect that. This is probably the most interesting question leading up to this game, Ayden, is what version of Joe Burrow do we get on Thursday
Yeah.
night?
Yeah.
Do we get the version that torched the Ravens for, I think, over 950 yards combined in the two games last year? Or do we get the Joe Burrow we saw in week one, right? Which is, I think the word to describe that performance was tentative. They kind of kept everything close to the chest. Yes, they won that game in Cleveland, but um, they didn't really do anything offensively aside from the opening drive. So, they we'll see which version of Burrow that shows up. But again, there's only so much you could truly garner from being on the sidelines and learning, right? And I had no T is tough.
Are we going to get late November, early December, Joe? Or are we going to get week one, Joe? That's the
I still
question.
believe, has Joe Burrow ever lost a game in December? I think it's like one. I think it might be one time he's lost a game in
He's
December.
unreal. He's
It's
unreal.
ridiculous. Obviously, he was
Um,
injured for two of those Decembers. Last year didn't lose a game in December. 2023, he was hurt. 22, they didn't lose a game in December. Because they didn't lose, they won like 10, 11 games in a row. That team was unbelievable. 21, I don't think they lost a game in December either. I think they just
I can't
won.
think off the top of my head,
They
but
beat the
oh,
Ravens. They beat the Chiefs. They beat well, the Browns game was meaningless and it was in January. So I don't know if he's ever lost a game that he's played in December. Obviously, this game won't be in December, so he I guess has liberty to lose this one. But
yeah.
again, not many dudes get better when the temperatures go down and when the season heats up than the real nine. I know there's another nine out in Minnesota that seems to anoint himself as nine, but when you're 851st out of 852 qualified quarterbacks in passer rating, and the only guy below you is Jamarcus Russell, maybe it's time to retire the nicknames and
Yeah,
just
yeah,
focus
pack
on
it
being a
up.
quarterback, JJ.
Self-anointed nicknames. Like when you give yourself a nickname, it's so much cornier, bro. Just like let the nickname come to you, man. Don't go out there and like crown yourself anyway. But the conversation with Burrow I find interesting, right? Because I think a lot of Bengals fans wanted to have the conversation of, oh, if Joe played against the Patriots, I think we win that game. Well, I don't know how true that is. Because again, we've seen in years past for whatever reason, when he's starting the year, it's just such a slow process. I don't know what it is, what takes him a little bit to kind of get into that flow. But that first month of the season always seems to be a struggle point. So is that going to be the case after two months off? I don't know. I'll tell you one thing. I think this Bengals team absolutely wins that game yesterday with Jamar Chase. I think he again, I don't know how much I can say it, and I don't know how true it is, but I still think some people, even in Bengals camps, underrate how good Jamar Chase is, and how much he impacts winning because Joe gets so much of the attention. But they absolutely win that game, with Jamar Chase. So,
And again, it's
um,
just it's stupidity from Jamar. You
yeah,
can't still
no, it is.
talked about it
It's
last year,
straight up.
right?
Yeah,
You just
you cost.
can't do that.
I don't want to put it all on this, but it's like you cost your team a game. It feels like.
And
Feels
look, we would have talked a little bit more about the Jamar Chase Christian Gonzalez matchup had it actually happened, but Christian Gonzalez got cooked by Mitchell Tinsley on that touchdown. I mean, that doesn't just happen. Shout out to Mitch for that because that was just a phenomenal play and a great throw and a great catch. But
Yep.
that
Yep.
would have been a
So
great battle, best
yeah,
on best, right?
I don't expect Joe to go out there and throw for 450, although, I wouldn't put it past him, but that's not my expectation, but I wouldn't be too shocked if it happens. I expect some rust. I really do, especially early. But I think we'll start to maybe get a stride kind of second half, late in the game. We'll see
And then
if we're still
how
in it
tentative
at
is
that point.
he? How tentative is he on this toe? I think that's the other thing. He's
Yeah.
mentioned this a couple times when he's been in press conferences. You know how he said how it doesn't impact his throwing motion too much, right? Once, because the important thing about it is if this is the toe, it's that push off that he needs from that big toe when he's throwing
Which
the football.
it's his left toe. So you think about it as a quarterback, your right-handed quarterback, you're pushing off your back foot, which is your right foot.
Yeah.
So really, you're not putting a lot of pressure on that left
Which
toe.
again, it makes it even more ridiculous that this injury happened because like it's so freaky. But
Yeah. But
that's Cincinnati's
the
luck.
main thing to watch, and I agree with you, Ethan. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I 100% agree with you. Is how does he escape pressure? You
Hmm.
think about, I think that's one of Burrow's more unsung traits is his like survivability in the pocket and how he's able to extend plays and kind of go off schedule is the buzzword that a lot of people like to use. But um, does he do that a lot against Baltimore? Does he try to escape? Because he mentioned it, like you said, a lot of the concern is the quick twitch stuff, the cuts, the jukes. Is he able to get out in space and move laterally? That's what I'm really going to be watching. I still think, obviously, he's going to spin it because that's what he does. But can he extend plays? Can he get away from pressure? Because that's something that they lacked with Flacco. Again, all love to Flacco. I will always love Flacco. He was
I
a
think
stat.
you and we don't have a ton of time left, but I think that's a good way to kind of wrap today up is to just I think you got to tip your cap, right? Just a went out there, played hurt, gutted through yesterday, had a finger snap out of place, put it back in, went back in the game, threw a touchdown. Think I'll always have some respect for him. Just a boatload of respect. I
I've
think
never had a heel turn on an athlete like I have with Joe Flacco.
I just again he came in gutted, played about as well as he possibly could have for
He
this team,
balled. He balled
right?
out.
Played threw for almost 2,000 yards in what 6 games, something like that. Just played out of his mind good for a guy who's on the wrong side of 40. Who this may well very well be his last stop, right? I think he kind of expressed how he's interested in playing some more. I wouldn't be surprised if a team kind of looked into bringing him in. I also would be quite happy if the Bengals brought him back for 2026. I think unless he really is keen on getting that starting opportunity, which he may well be, if the Bengals toss him an offer, it's an upgrade over Jake Browning, who, by the way, had a very nice completion yesterday when he came in for the one play. But I think if you want to have that backup, I also think, and I truly I'm interested to see this as well. How many lessons could Joe Burrow take from Joe Flacco? Right? I think there are some great lessons he can learn from a guy who won a Super Bowl MVP, thrown for something like 40,000 passing yards in his career. I think there are lessons to be learned there, and I'm more than sure that those meetings have been intensive, right? Because there is definitely this is the I mentioned this all the way back when the Bengals first traded for him, that there was an opportunity for Burrow for the really the first time ever to learn from somebody who'd been in the league longer than him. When you think back through the years, all of the backups that the Bengals have had or other quarterbacks, I mean, Joe Burrow came in, started right away in 2020 because Dalton wasn't on the team anymore. 21, it was Brandon Allen, right? Who had been in the league but was never a starter, right? 22, it was still Allen, then it was Browning from 2023 onwards. So you've never really had a guy like Joe Flacco as a backup. So I think there are a ton of lessons that Joe could have taken from Joe. And I really do think that would have been those lessons would have been utilized. And I'm interested to see if Joe Burrow, maybe, especially some of those play action techniques, I think he could definitely
Get
take a
under
leaf out of
center
Flacco's
a little
book
bit
there.
more.
Absolutely. And then, some of the downfield passing concepts and just take anything, soak up any knowledge you can, right? From a guy who's been around the block, who's done it a few times. And it's the first time Joe's ever really had that in the building.
I think if Burrow wants to survive and play for as long as Flacco has, which I'm sure he does, knowing him, he's going to have to because the way he plays is not sustainable to play for 20 plus years like Flacco is. So I do hope for his sake and everyone's sake and Bengals fans' sake that he does just a little bit. But we're going to get some hero ball back, which is always fun to watch, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't. I expect that first little scramble. There might be some Bengal hearts and mouths, but when he finds Jamar for the 10-yard completion over the middle, it'll all be alleviated. So, looking very, very quickly, the rest of the division, the Ravens won, as we mentioned. Steelers lost 31-28. Fought hard without Aaron Rodgers, but we're not able to win. Chicago Bears are 8-3. Big shout out to Ben Johnson.
Yes,
And then the
sir. Go
Browns,
Broncos.
very quickly here. The Browns, it seems, even though Dylan Gabriel made it out of concussion protocol today. The risks are up. I don't have my watch on, but the risks are up. Shador Sanders has been named the starting quarterback. Played all right yesterday. Played pretty
Shador
well.
doesn't blow me away. I've never been like a huge Shador guy. That 40-yard throw that he
Hmm.
had rolling right, unreal.
See,
Unreal.
I was at another Cincinnati failure when they got spanked by Inter Miami 4-0 yesterday. So I didn't watch much of the 4 o'clock window, but just I watched that throw on replay, and yeah, you can see a good quarterback there. If they set him up in the right spot, he's the first Browns quarterback in like 40 years to win their first start. So shout out to him. We'll see what the
Not a
Browns can
real
do with it.
franchise,
So,
dude. They're not a real
um,
franchise.
so yeah, shout out to the Browns. They get the win over the Raiders, and it probably doesn't do anything but knock their draft pick down a few slots. So, and the Jags
Yo,
keep winning too, which doesn't help them because remember they have Jacksonville's first round pick this year. So, um, yeah. Last thing, shout out Jameis Winston for that unbelievable catch that he made.
he's the
That was
greatest player
awesome.
in the NFL. I
That
love
was
him so
awesome.
much.
Loved everything about that. So,
I love him. I mean, he just looked like Kenny Galladay.
hey,
Like
it's
just the wheel route and he jukes the guy out. I mean,
duked
if you're
him.
that corner,
That line's defender should be cut.
I mean, yeah,
I
no.
don't care.
Get
Hang it
off my
up.
football team. You're
Hang it
one on
up.
one with Jameis Winston, and Jameis
And he
Winston
got
took you.
cooked by what? How old is Jameis? 36?
And
35
then
years
and
old?
then they hit the Motown Selly in the end zone afterwards, bro. Just pack it in, dude. Pack
Yeah,
it in.
time
It's
to
over.
time to go home. But
You,
that'll wrap things up for
you
this
didn't give
edition
a
of
score
Jungle
prediction.
Fever. Oh yeah, let's do a pick. Duh.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with the Ravens. I'm gonna go with 30-20.
Okay. Okay. Um, I give me the Bengals. I don't know why.
Bang.
Yeah, F it. Give me the Bengals. It's gonna be a shootout. It's gonna be 27-24. Bengals win.
Ooh.
Take the
Okay.
over.
Okay. Should be fun.
Wait, no, that's it.
It always is good to see Joe Burrow play football. I will say that much. So, we'll see how the Bengals, if they can spoil Thanksgiving or not. We'll see about doing a show. We probably will just wait until Monday with all the chaos at Thanksgiving and all. I'm going home. I think as long as everything went to plan, Aiden's going home as well. So,
Mhm.
yeah, we'll be back on Monday. We'll break down what we saw on Thursday night, and then we'll get into with the long week. The Bengals will be going to Buffalo in the week after that. So fun couple of weeks here for the Bengals. Fun couple of road trips. They're on the road both of the next 2 weeks. So that'll do it for this edition of the Jungle Fever podcast. For Aiden Crowley, I've been Ethan Sargent saying so long. We will see you next Monday. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.